spacecraft on internal power.
ULA is using the Atlas V 551 configuration to launch AEHF-6. This is the 83rd flight of the Atlas V rocket and ULA's 138th mission. Produced in ULA's 1.6 million square foot factory in Decatur, Alabama, the 551 is the largest and most powerful configuration in the Atlas V fleet. It is comprised of a common core booster powered by an RD-180 engine, 5 Aerojet Rocketdyne solid rocket boosters, and a Centaur second stage powered by an Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10C1 engine. Events that took place in preparation for today's launch began February 27th when the satellite was encapsulated inside the payload fairing. The RUAG 5-meter diameter payload fairing protects the AEHF-6 payload during ascent. On March 11th, the encapsulated payload was transported to the Vertical Integration Facility, or VIF, at Space Launch Complex 41, where it was mated to the Atlas V rocket. The launch countdown begins with moving the rocket from the VIF to the pad. At approximately 11 a.m. Wednesday, the quarter-mile trip began using 6 components to complete the 20-minute trip. Weighing in at about 2 million pounds, the Mobile Launch Platform, or MLP, supports the rocket and contains air conditioning, electrical, and commodities, while the undercarriages bear the weight of the MLP and the rocket. 2 rail cars lead the move, with the payload van providing communication to the payload, while the ground van houses the ground support for the rocket. At the rear of the convoy, the portable environmental control system provides air conditioning to the payload and rocket. Finally, trackmobiles provide the power to move the 3.5 million pound convoy. A third trackmobile is added to the front of the convoy to move our largest Atlas V configurations like today's 551 rocket. The Atlas V rocket stands about 60 meters or 20 stories tall and weighs about 580,000 kilograms or 1.3 million pounds fully fueled. The RD-180 main engine and 5 solid rocket boosters produce nearly 11.5 million newtons, or about 2.6 million pounds of thrust, to lift the rocket off the pad and begin its journey to orbit. As I mentioned earlier, Atlas V is launching the 6th and final satellite in the Space Force's Advanced EHF constellation. Built by Lockheed Martin, the AEHF constellation is the next generation of global, high-security, survivable communications satellites used by all branches of the United States military, national leaders, and international allies. AEHF satellites are the follow-on to the Department of Defense's current 5-satellite Milstar communications constellation. The advanced EHF constellation will consist of 6 cross-linked satellites and is backwards compatible with the Milstar constellation, with a substantial increase in throughput and coverage to users. This increase gives users the ability to transfer information globally in seconds rather than hours. As the world takes on the difficult challenge of slowing the spread of COVID-19, we wanted to take a moment to share how ULA is responding to the situation. ULA is critical to our country's national security and civil exploration missions. This is a role we take very seriously. Part of fulfilling that purpose is safeguarding the health and safety of our employees, visitors, customers, suppliers, and communities. To that end, as we continue operations, we are following guidance from the U.S. Center for Disease Control, as well as state and local guidance in the communities in which ULA has a presence. As an entity designated part of our nation's essential critical infrastructure, ULA continues to fulfill our duty to our country and our fellow citizens.
OSM. Place SRB ignition SNA switch in the enable position.
The artwork on the payload fairing of today's Atlas V rocket is 6-sided to represent the 6th satellite in the AEHF constellation. In the center, there are 5 satellites around the Earth, with the 6th satellite as the prominent feature of design. The program's stakeholders are around the edge, along with each partner country represented by their flag. The Atlas V rocket is also sporting another new piece of artwork, the Space Force seal. This seal represents the newly formed Space Force. Of course, all of you watching today's webcast will have a great view of the liftoff, but those on the southeast coast of the United States and into the Atlantic will have a front row seat. Here's a look at what you'll see. The red line represents the rocket's trajectory, and the time in the upper right corner corresponds with elapsed time from liftoff here at Cape Canaveral. So if the skies are clear, step outside and see if you can see the launch.
L-8 minutes.
LC switch to the ready position. All steps are complete prior to the status check.
We remain in the planned 15-minute built-in hold as we continue to prepare for liftoff. In a few moments, launch conductor Scott Barney will poll the launch team for the final go to pick up the countdown. 29 engineers and managers are polled for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check before launch for all Atlas vehicle systems, ground systems, the spacecraft, and the U.S. Air Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Scott Barney performs the final polling of the launch team.
L-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas system. Propulsion. Go. Hydraulics. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems. Propulsion. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
ASGAP.
Go.
Electrical systems. Airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Operations support.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Red line monitor. Go. Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer. Go. Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC verify T0 is set for 1857 Zulu.
Verified.
Polling is complete and the launch team has given the go for launch. From T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you will be listening to Scott Barney and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. You will hear the team call out that Atlas LO2 topping has been secured, followed about a minute later by the call out for transferring the Atlas and Centaur stages from ground facility power to internal battery power. At T-minus 1 minute 55 seconds, the team will command the launch sequencer to start, followed shortly by securing the Centaur LH2 and LO2 topping activity. At T-minus 1 minute 40 seconds, the team will command the flight control system to launch enable and arm the flight termination system. In the final minute, the Atlas tanks will be verified at flight pressures, followed by verification of Centaur tank pressures. A final status check of Atlas, Centaur, and AEHF-6 readiness is conducted at T-minus 25 seconds. At T-minus 3 seconds, the RD-180 engine will roar to life. After liftoff, you'll hear the voice of Jesse Gonzalez providing launch vehicle ascent data. This is Atlas Mission Control at T+4 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
3, 2, 1, mark. 355.
Ground pyros enabled.
The countdown clock has resumed, and we are go for launch at 2:57 p.m. Eastern.
T-minus 3 minutes.
Securing LO2 topping.
Atlas tanks to flight pressure.
T-minus 2 minutes, 50 seconds.
FTS internal.
T-minus 1 minute, 59 seconds.
Vehicle internal.
155.
Launch sequencer start.
150.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
140.
Launch enabled.
137.
FTS armed.
T-minus 90 seconds. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch.
T-minus 1 minute, 20 seconds.
OCU's armed. FCO count started.
115.
Reduce CCS for launch.
Roger.
110.
Vent valves locked.
T-minus 1 minute.
T-minus
Range
1
status.
minute.
Range green. Hold.
LC switch not ready.
Flight control. Gotta hold it at approximately T-minus 46 seconds.
All team, proceed to Operation 80.
Centaur tank venting in progress.
Roger. A recycle call by flight control at T-minus 159. Excuse me, T-minus 46 seconds. LC switch is not ready.
Atlas tank pressures are stable. At 30.
Roger.
Centaur tank pressures are stable.
Roger.
Flight control is ready to reset the clock to T-minus 4 and holding.
Roger. ALC, reset countdown clock to T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Roger.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The team is working to reset the clock to T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We will pass along a new T0 when it's available.
Countdown clock is reset to T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Roger. OSM, LC.
OSM.
Step 50, place SRB ignition SNA switch at disabled position.
SRB ignition disabled.
LC to flight control.
Go flight control.
Yeah, step 30 SS FAPS inactive SES in pre-flight mode.
Roger. All stations recycle systems back to T-minus 4 and holding configuration. Hold occurred at 46 seconds. Report status of completion.
LC Lux 1.
Go Lux 1.
Atlas LO2 topping in progress.
Roger.
Atlas thanks to flight pressure, and Atlas pneumatic pressure is stable.
Roger.
Does anyone else find it disturbing that the oxygen liquid is so close appearing in the foreshortening of this particular image? I think the camera is actually right beside one of the lightning towers, but it is definitely one of those you can't tell the distance to anything kinds of images that makes one wonder, should I be here? Should I be here? I know it says oxygen non-flammable liquid, but still.
LC, FTS,
Go FTS.
Step 310, Substep Juliet, FTS, safe and external.
Roger.
And LC step 310, Echo, CEC active, and Foxtrot, Centaur pneumatic system stable.
Roger.
It was that LC that caused the hold. I don't know what the LC
This
is.
Atlas Mission Control. Launch conductor Scott Barney is guiding the launch team through the steps to safe the rocket and pad systems following the unplanned hold called at T-minus 46 seconds. Meanwhile, engineers are examining the cause of the countdown stoppage. We are still sitting at T-minus 4 minutes and holding, and we will pass along a new T0 when it's available.
So as a reminder,
Substep November, ECS, set point stable.
Roger.
I am not Annie. Annie knows more about rockets than I do. So she just got her internet. She's been down sick after her move. So I'm covering things today. And I appreciate the infinite patience of everyone in chat who is helping to bring this coverage together. This satellite was contracted long before Space Force, and one of the things that I have recently learned, I'm so glad you have pizza. I do not have pizza, but I had Cadbury mini eggs. One of the things that I learned today.
LC Lux 2.
Go Lux 2.
For Operation Step 310, Substep Golf, Centaur LO2 continuing topping.
Roger.
LC Prop 1.
Go.
First substep Charlie, Atlas propulsion system stable.
Roger.
First step Delta, Atlas hydraulic system stable.
Roger.
LC to flight control.
Go.
Step 310, substep Kilo, flight control ready.
Roger.
Substep Lima, GC Cube ready.
Roger.
So Space Force is not actually a standalone branch of the military, just as the Marine Force is part of the Department of the Navy. Space Force is part of the Department of the Air Force. So just as Marines and Navy units go together but have slightly different purposes, Air Force and Space Force
Mike, red line monitor ready.
go together. So you will find various different groups referring to this as, thank you, Astro Wise. Do you guys want this? Make it rain! Eddie was not impressed. He was all ready to jump up on the desk.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The team is working the activities to save the launch vehicle and the ground support equipment to put the Atlas V and Space Launch Complex 41 back into the same configuration as it was at the T-minus 4 minute hold point. As the team works that, the team is working to determine the issue that initiated the hold. In addition, today's available launch window does extend to 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time.
So that's about 2 hours from now. All right, so now we sit and we watch the waves crash against the shore and wonder if an alligator will wander across the causeway. If you ever do visit Kennedy Space Flight Center and the adjoining Cape Canaveral military complex, there are so many alligators, so very many alligators. And you will occasionally see them just hanging out, sunning themselves by one of these rockets that are getting ready to launch. They have a variety of wildlife specialists and nature conservationists. They treat the Kennedy Space Flight Center, the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral as a wildlife refuge. Now, they will move alligators when they are in places they should not be. But overall, this is a good place for wildlife, and it is a common phenomenon to see the dolphins jump out of the water around the launch pads.
Go ahead, Elsie.
Just want to verify you're still completing your HAZGAS readiness.
Affirmative. Just verified. HAZGAS is ready.
Roger. LD, LC, that one.
LD on one.
SLD, we did hold it 46 seconds, recycle of the system.
Oh, shoot, how did that happen?
System is now complete, awaiting completion of the issue that caused us to abort out, and waiting on that resolution.
Roger that. Once we hear the resolution, we'll coordinate with the mission director and coordinate a new T0.
Roger.
So we are still waiting to hear exactly what went sideways. You'll notice from this particular image that each of the different space launch companies do have their own mission control. This is the ULA, where not a woman is to be seen anywhere. Well, there's one. There's one in the back row. There's another one in the front row. But really, wow, okay. Whole lot of black shirts, whole lot of really boring computer monitors. It's a thing, people. It's a thing.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The recycle of the system to the T-minus 4 minutes and holding point has been completed, and we are just waiting on the resolution of the issue that initiated the hold. The team is continuing to work that, and we will provide updates as we get them.
So we have no firm idea of why the rocket did not rocket when it was supposed to. There was a hold put into place at T-minus 47 seconds. We have now returned to the configuration that the rocket was at during its original hold at T-minus 4 minutes. And we hold. We are still waiting to hear what the updated launch time will be. Their window closes in about in about 1 hour, 40 minutes. This launch is taking place from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral are adjoining plots of land. Cape Canaveral is a military base, while Kennedy Space Center is a civilian NASA base. Thank you so much, Bill Nash. That was an amazing community sub-gift. Thank you. Thank you, Bill Nash. Whoa, dog cam took a spill.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The launch team has completed the countdown recycle of all systems. Engineers are now troubleshooting what caused the countdown to be stopped and how to resolve the issue.
Looking at the data, and we'll get you a response.
Roger. Please convene an anomaly team. Provide a recommendation.
We'll go.
I was recabling things earlier. You may notice that there's a audio cable kind of dangling here instead of being attached to the mic arm. This is because I found the new cable, which is really an old cable.
I want to take a moment to remind viewers of the spectacular work and success our ULA team, Lockheed Martin, and the Space Force have had in launching the first 5 AEHF satellites starting in 2010. Let's take a look at some footage from those launches. Over the last decade, ULA, in partnership with the Space and Missile Systems Center and Lockheed Martin, have orbited the Advanced Extremely High Frequency constellation of satellites. Designed to provide secure, protected, and survivable communications, the first satellite launched August 14, 2010, on an Atlas V 531 rocket, followed by AEHF-2 on May 4, 2012, and AEHF-3 on September 18, 2013. On October 17, 2018, the fourth AEHF satellite lifted off on an Atlas V 551. Carrying 2 additional solid rocket boosters, the Atlas V 551 stack provided the additional liftoff thrust required to carry the larger AEHF-4, AEHF-5, which launched on August 8, 2019, and AEHF-6 satellites. With today's launch, ULA's Atlas V and Cape Canaveral's Space Launch Complex 41 close a decade of support to this vital strategic capability.
So Bad Panda shared with us a image that unfortunately the link is taking me instead to my own photos of cacti, which aren't entirely useful. I don't know if you can open the image in a new window, Bad Panda, and send us a link directly to your fabulous launch photos that include a gator. Yes, Malachi has no shame. Do you want this, guys? There. Thank you, Bill Nash, for being such a fabulous support to our stream. Thank you so very much.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The team is analyzing the data related to the issue that caused the unplanned hold and working to resolve the issue and establish a new T0.
Gator! Now I can see it. All right, I'm going to quickly share this photo of the Gator on stream. This is a Kennedy Space Center Gator. So there you can see it doing its best possible imitation of the Loch Ness Monster. This is the kind of wildlife you see if you tour the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral. So as I was saying before, Kennedy Space Center is a civilian complex operated by the National Aeronautical Space Administration, otherwise known as NASA. There is a lot of back and forth between Kennedy and Cape Canaveral, and there are civilian launches that take place from Cape Canaveral. SpaceX has launched from both sides of the water. One of the best places to watch launches is from the causeway that bridges between these two different parts of this extended launch complex. Waiting to know why they failed to launch and to find out should they eventually end up actually launching. This is one of the most frustrating parts. So while we're here hanging out, it's worth noting that you can actually see that this rocket is still sitting on its mobile launch platform. They do launch these rockets directly from the launch platform and carry their own launch arm out there with them. The elevator that you see off to the left is a permanent part of the facility, whereas the ULA arm is part of what allows them to take this rocket from horizontal to vertical, which I think I got that right. Again, not Annie. Annie knows more about these than I do. I don't remember if they carry this one out upright or sideways. Waiting is such sorrow. Can said photo end up in images? Yes, Bad Panda just needs to put it there. Cosmic Quest does have a split personality again. It's true. Annie and I are both on here as the same human right now. They do carry it out upright. Okay, thank you so much for the correction. Oh, different photo. What photo do you want to have end up in images? The picture of Annie. I missed that. Sorry, I was focused on the alligator. You can sit on a model of the ISS toilet. Yeah, we still desperately need to write up all of our adventures in Florida. Yeah, it's been a crazy few months. I think we as a race have somehow cursed ourselves because every time we say, next year will be better, that year says, hold my beer, and proves us wrong. So, yeah. Okay, see you later, Paranor. That trip does seem so long ago, Astrowise. It was back in December, the week of December 12th. We were there for my birthday, which worked out.
Mission Control. The team is working an issue associated with a ground hydraulic accumulator fault. They are working through this issue and will establish a new T0 once we have it resolved.
Put into other words, the hydraulics broke. They don't know how long it will take to fix. And after they have fixed the hydraulic thing that faulted, then they will tell us when they can launch, which is really a good way to do this. I'm sure Disney will still be there, Checker Kev. I'm just not sure when it will reopen. I like keepers. Can I tweet that out, keeper? Oh, our current timeline is the result of downgrading the God of War. Or God of Underworld. I really appreciate that. And wow, I'm totally failing to screen grab that. Yeah, Bad Panda, never challenge anything to not be worse. You will be surprised at how wrong you can be. And welcome home, 77. Welcome. We are currently, I can down my volume half a notch. How about I move my microphone away? Sorry about that. I believe this is Cape Caneveral, Arnstro. Fooled by the camera angle. Currently, we are looking at the most awkward camera angle there is. It looks like we're looking at the heads of 3 stormtroopers from Spaceballs. I don't like that camera angle. I have opinions. They're weird ones. Let's see. And we're waiting. So once again, for those who are newly arrived, there has been something that went wrong, and the space goer upper has been the space sitter downer. There was apparently a hydraulics related problem in the ground segments. I have no idea what that means. They are going to fix it, and after they have fixed it, they will let us know if they're going to launch today. Their window does close in, I believe she said 5:47, which would make it about an hour and a half away. So they could just keep us waiting until 4 minutes before that window ends. I hope that they don't do that, because that would be terrible. They did stop something from going really wrong. It is entirely true. So Veronica Cure, I don't think the one with the view at the tops of what looks like stormtroopers from Spaceballs, I don't think that one's so much out of focus as it really doesn't have that many pixels, and things appear out of focus when you stretch the resolution beyond what the resolution is willing to be. Go, robot Squidward, go! It so cannot unsee the octopi. Cannot unsee the octopi. So the chunkiness that you just saw blowing in the wind was probably just frost falling off. There, you see more. Because that part of the spacecraft is filled with liquid gas, which is exceedingly cold, the humid air of Florida does build frost on the outer shell of the rocket. It is a warm day today in Florida, and this frost is no danger to the spacecraft. So window goes to 4:57 Eastern, so about an hour and a half left.
This is Atlas Mission Control. Engineers are continuing to work through troubleshooting steps to better understand the hydraulics issue that has stopped the countdown. The system has been reset at T-minus 4 minutes and holding, and we are waiting for resolution of the issue before we can establish a new T0.
I love the way they say resolution of the issue instead. We're waiting for them to fix it. They're waiting for them to fix it. And Limp Rimble, you're on a roll today. There are no Space Force red shirts yet. Although, wouldn't it be delicious if the undershirts worn by Space Force were bright red, since it really doesn't matter since they're Space Force. And why do they currently have camo outfits? This is one of those things I do not know. Well, I do know. It's because they already had them on hand, but still. It's 79 degrees Fahrenheit, 26 degrees Celsius in Cape Caneveral right now. I haven't been warm in a long time. Yes, DPI, that is the way these things often work. You tell people it will take you so much longer. They give you a deadline. You say, expletive, and then you still do it in less time. Yeah. Well, Veronica Cure, it's true camo doesn't show the stains as much, but still, they could go all black, disappear against the darkness of space. And they do operate mostly on the ground. I do understand that, but it's still fun to make fun of. I am glad that they didn't waste money on new uniforms, but over time, people are going to have to replace their uniforms. They are going to run out of their storerooms, and it would be really cool if they did give them red t-shirts. This will never happen. But in my personal headcanon, this is an excellent idea. If something goes really wrong, it's resolved. I need you to explain that one more, Open Cage. Space Force will be mostly in computer centers, so they would need blinky lights on their uniform to blend in. That is fabulous, Bad Panda. Can you explain that, Arnstro? What is a ground hydraulics accumulator? Because to me that translates into they accumulate hydraulic fluid, but that doesn't seem to make sense. No finger gespoken. What do you mean, DPI 209? Wayne Johnson has a virtual pub. Oy, worst camera angle they have. Worst camera angle. I really want like an alligator to walk through the field of view and just look up at the rocket. Oh, okay. I guessed correctly from the words they were using. That's cool. Well, I will say this for ULA. If this were a NASA stream, we would currently be subjected to propaganda videos with overly happy being persons. And ULA is just like, we're just going to look at the rocket. We're just going to chill out and we're going to look at the rocket. And there's something pleasing about that, although I do apparently feel the need to fill dead space. So Ramphornicus says a hydraulics accumulator does indeed accumulate hydraulic fluid, specifically with a gas spring up top to maintain pressure. Our instructor continues, hydraulics are used to operate ground clamps and various connections. Yeah, Bad Panda makes a really good comment about the propaganda videos that we get subjected to with the various companies, and I'm just not going to bother to say any of that out loud.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The team is continuing to work to resolve the issue with the hydraulics that caused the unplanned hold at T-minus 46 seconds. Once that issue is resolved, we will establish a new T0. We do still have about an hour and a half left in our launch window for today's launch, so we have quite a bit of time left to work through this issue.
That's the tone of voice of, oh dear God, I'm going to have to keep coming on and filling dead air. You really have to feel for the announcers because they are not in a position to deploy sarcasm as I am able to do here on Twitch. At least she isn't physically on air, so there's less worry about showing frustration on her face. It is really not easy to be the talking heads for these particular agencies because you are speaking with an audience of Congress critters who will fund you, of NASA who will judge you, and of the space agency itself, in this case ULA, that is trying to shine brightly and always be put in the most positive light. And the slightest slip up in word choice can lead to a really bad day. And in our modern era, it doesn't even require word choice. It can be a slight slip of the facial features. The Ariane space announcer is excellent. It is her job, keeper of maps. But still, I'm glad that you guys appreciate my snark, because that's really all you're going to get today. Thank you so much, TV, for the follow. Thank you. It's fun to watch how the lighting changes on the hazy day with the high altitude clouds that they're having down there. In Florida, it has gone from a gray to sunlit to gray, back and forth, with the contrast changing as the lighting changes. It is damp outside in the real world. It's actually quite humid where I am right now. It's only 9C where you are. That's the weather I had yesterday. It was like, it's starting to feel like spring. I regret being out here without a jacket. It's that time of year when all the daffodils are out and you think it's safe to go outside, and it's really, you need a jacket. Our instructor points out the big deal about this satellite and the other AEHF birds. They are the next generation communication satellites for the military, replacing the Milstar birds. They are advertising these as unjammable. As Keeper of Map points out, that probably means they're harder to jam, but it's still cool. Helicopter footage. Or drone footage, probably helicopter. They fly helicopters around the site to make sure that there's no silly people in boats out in the water where they could have stuff fall on them. I am pleased with the helicopter footage. Presumed helicopter footage. I have Eddie at my feet, and he just let out the saddest sigh. Yes, they are black helicopters. They're little tiny black helicopters. They're quite cute. Yes, it is pleasing when our instructor talks satellite jargon. That is true. Thank you, Keeper. Okay, you can come up here. Yeah, I know. You can't have them straight out of the cup. There. Yeah, that's a good boy. Did he make it on camera? I don't know. Come here, Eddie. Come here. Just come up and say, you really, really want Cheerios. This is the only thing you want. Hi. You want a Cheerio? Here. Can you look at the, look at the camera. Hey. There you go. Look at the camera. He is the floofiest of floofs. Look. That's my headphones.
Today's mission marks Atlas's 665th launch and the 83rd launch of the Atlas V configuration. Let's take a look at the history of Atlas, which first launched in 1957.
To life and liftoff of the maiden flight of the Atlas V rocket with a Hot Bird 6 spacecraft on board.
As the inaugural flight of the Atlas V lifted off on August 21st, 2002, it carried with it the dreams and aspirations of thousands of rocket pioneers who had laid the foundation that made it possible. Atlas V continues the Atlas legacy of innovation and accomplishment that has been vital to our nation for more than half a century. Named after the mighty giant of Greek mythology who carried the world on his shoulders, Atlas was conceived as a weapon and a deterrent, but evolved into a system that pushed the envelope with trailblazing innovation and steadfast reliability. At the request of the Air Force, Charlie Bossert and his San Diego-based engineering team began work on a demanding set of requirements to design an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of delivering a 1,500-pound warhead to a target 5,500 miles away. Their answer, which became known as Atlas, was the top national priority in 1955 as the race with the Soviets engulfed the country. On June 11, 1957, the first Atlas flight lifted off from Space Launch Complex 14 at Cape Canaveral, Florida. The flight ended 38 seconds later, Bossard's team had taken the first step and proven the structural integrity of their innovative pressure-stabilized steel tank. Complete success for the Air Force and Bossard's team would come just 5 months later, on December 17, 1957.
Go, honey, keep going, baby.
Though the Soviets had beaten the U.S. to space with the launch of Sputnik in October 1957, President Eisenhower would counter a year later when Atlas 10B delivered his holiday message of peace from orbit 180 miles above Earth. Known as Project SCORE, the orbiting Atlas booster became the world's first communication satellite.
This is the President of the United States speaking. Through the marvels of scientific advance, my voice is coming to you from a satellite circling in outer space.
Attention all personnel, report to the blockhouse immediately. Countdown will begin.
On September 9, 1959, Atlas 12D became America's first operational ICBM, following launch from California's Vandenberg Air Force Base. In all, 350 Atlas ICBMs were built and stood on operational alert through 1965. The surplus boosters were refurbished and used by the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, and NASA. The last refurbished booster was launched in 1995. By the early 1960s, the Atlas booster had made the transition from missile to space launch vehicle, and 1962 proved to be a pivotal year. Riding atop an Atlas booster in Project Mercury's Friendship 7 capsule, John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth on February 20, 1962. Three additional Mercury flights, carrying astronauts Scott Carpenter, Wally Schirra, and Gordon Cooper, set the stage for the Gemini flights and the Apollo missions to the Moon. Later that year, Atlas scored another first when Atlas 179D, equipped with an Agena upper stage, lifted off from Space Launch Complex 12 at Cape Canaveral. Its payload, NASA's Mariner 2, became the first successful interplanetary spacecraft. 1962 also marked the debut of the Centaur upper stage, the first to harness the power of liquid hydrogen. The Centaur upper stage, to this day, remains a hallmark of the Atlas system. Together, with its Agena and Centaur upper stages, the Atlas booster went on to play a significant role in America's exploration of the solar system, launching virtually every exploration mission in the 1960s and 1970s.
It was the first spacecraft that was launched from Earth that had enough energy to escape the entire solar system.
During the late 1970s and 1980s, Atlas continued to play important roles in the development of our nation's space program. In addition to building our national security presence in space, converted Atlas boosters also launched the Air Force's Navstar demonstration satellites, leading to the navigation system known today as GPS. In the late 1980s, General Dynamics saw an opportunity to bring commercial payloads back to expendable launch vehicles, and on July 25, 1990, AC-69, the first Atlas I, ushered in a new commercial era for Atlas. The commercial era brought 8 new Atlas configurations over a 14-year span, each carrying an operational payload. The commercial program has enabled breakthroughs in communications, meteorology, broadcast technology, navigation, and national security. In 1995, development of the Atlas III vehicle began. In a bold move, the Atlas booster engine system was replaced with the powerful RD-180, which generates 860,000 pounds of thrust and has throttle capability resulting in a smoother and more efficient ride. Making its debut from Space Launch Complex 36 on May 24, 2000, the Atlas III provided a substantial performance improvement over the Atlas IIAS. Reliability was increased by reducing the number of engines from 8 to 2 and the elimination of 5 staging events, as well as more than 10,000 parts.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus.
In 1998, the Atlas team embarked on a development project for the United States Air Force that would forever change the Atlas vehicle.
And the RD-180 engine roars to life, and liftoff of the maiden flight of the Lockheed Martin Atlas V rocket with a Hot Bird 6 spacecraft on board for Eutelsat in Paris, France.
For more than 40 years, Atlas vehicles had relied on the pressure-stabilized steel tank developed by Charlie Bossert and his team. In a departure from conventional thinking, the Atlas V development replaced the tank with a structurally stable common core booster. In addition to vehicle modifications, the team took a new approach to processing and launch. Atlas V processing is done vertically, and the mobile service tower has been replaced by a mobile launch platform, which carries the entire assembled vehicle to the launch pad, ready to fuel and launch. The Atlas V is expanded to multiple payload bearing and solid rocket booster configurations, as well as re-establishing a launch capability from the West Coast at Vandenberg Air Force Base. The Atlas vehicle has a long legacy of accomplishment. This record of success, which is nearly unparalleled in the launch industry, is built on the lessons handed down from more than 60 years of Atlas experience. It is also a credit to the dedication and persistence of the Atlas team and their passion for mission success, one launch at a time.
So I just saw the comment in the chat that it's sad that we've been using the same technology for 40 years. But while we've been using Atlas rockets for 40 years, they've been undergoing constant development. It's sort of like the Intel chips, the original...
LC-LOX-2.
Go LOX-2.
We would like to recommend a transfer line rechill at this time.
Roger. And what is the timing? What's the typical time for that reach? But yeah, go to proceed.
Stand by, will advise.
Okay, go ahead and proceed, and just looking for when that would be.
Roger.
So as I was...
LC-LOX-2.
Go.
It'll be about 10 minutes.
Roger.
I don't know what it will be 10 minutes for, but apparently it will be about 10 minutes.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The team has identified and understands the cause of the hydraulics issue. They are currently working through a solution to the issue. The window today extends to 4:57 p.m. Eastern Time, so we'll continue to work this issue in an effort to establish a new T0.
All right, trying to finish my thought. When looking at the fact that they've been flying the Atlas rockets for 40 years, it's kind of like thinking about how long we've been using Intel chips. The original 286 chips came out in the 80s. We've been using 286, 486, Pentium, I don't know what they call their current chips. We've been using these chips for 30 some odd years, and they aren't the same, but they're all Intel chips. They're all the 8086 processors. And so while the Atlas still is called the Atlas, and while the Atlas still maintains much of the same physical architecture, the circuits, the electronics, the systems are constantly getting revised and updated. So it's the Atlas legacy. Another thing is we still drive Mustangs. We still drive Volkswagen Beetles, although those took a hiatus for a while. These are ever-changing versions of the same thing, but it's in the change that we move through the decades. Yeah, they're legacies, but all because you carry a heritage doesn't mean you're the same thing that your ancestors were. So I'm going to pull up the tweet that was mentioned, trying to get it into a better window. So this was shared out by Julie Bergeron, and it reads, normally the jetty would be packed with viewers on lunch day. Today the beach is not as crowded. I think the best view goes to the crews of the cruise ships that are just off the coast waiting out the COVID closures. So here is the still too crowded, too many humans. At least they're all outside. UV light is a fabulous thing. Here are all the people on the beach. And this is the one that really got me. All the cruise ships parked out right off the coast. Cape Caneveral cruise ship port is completely full. They don't have enough places to put all the cruise ships that are currently out of commission. One thing that I'm hoping will become true is there's been some talk of cruise lines working to redeem themselves, offering to go to cities and act as hospital boats. You may have heard Trump talking about how he was going to deploy America's 2 hospital ships, the Mercy, and I'm not remembering the name of the other ship. However, both of those boats are currently down for maintenance. So his promise to get them sent to, he said, LA and New York at various times, that actually isn't possible. One of the ships actually isn't certified currently to be a hospital ship. It's maintenance going on, and neither of them are crewed. In order for those ships to be deployed, they're going to have to pull medical staff from other facilities, either calling up the reserves, which will deplete civilian hospitals of the National Guard and reservists who are doctors in local hospitals that those doctors and medical staff can deploy to the ships.
Go
Locks 2.
Or they're going.
Rechill is complete and topping is in progress.
Roger.
Or they're going to have to pull medical doctors from VA facilities and places like Ramstein in Germany. With us not knowing when those hospital ships can be deployed, one thought is, let's deploy these cruise ships and at least bring one good thing out of all the sorrow that the boats have so far spread. But it's impressive to see so many of them off the coast right now. We need medical force. Well, yeah. Cruise ships are not equipped to be isolation rooms, that's true. But one of the things that we learned from China is if you have people who you know through testing, which we don't have, are all positive, they're already sick. So you can put all of them on a cruise ship where isolation doesn't matter. And when they're healthy, they'll have antibodies. And in this way, you still have to worry about your medical personnel. You have to worry so much about their medical personnel. And this is one of the great frustrations with the lack of testing. If we had, as is being developed in so many other places, antibody tests to be able to figure out who's been sick and who hasn't, you know who it's safe to send in to help the sick. But we don't know. Yeah, Checker Kev, just waiting for the rocket to launch. Just waiting for the rocket launch. All right. Yay, Guido has desktop chat again. What was wrong with your desktop chat? Oh man, Open Cage, that's sad. Oh, 2-day of work from home rations, hamburger helper, Trekker Kev says. So if any of you need crock pot cooking, stovetop cooking recipes that will perfectly well keep in the refrigerator and be good reheated, or you just need a crock pot you can keep going for days on end, hit me up. I did make a truly terrible soup yesterday following a recipe, but as long as I don't follow recipes and cook the things I learned growing up, I've got some good meals for you. Yeah, Jandre Loon points out more than half of all cruise ships have crew and passengers that will be living on those ships for a few months. It's a weird, weird world. Oh, Bad Panda doesn't have a crock pot. Please tell me you have a rice maker or an Instapot or something like that. My rice maker is currently my best friend. Yeah, Veronica Cure, I believe in warm food. This may go with the fact that I'm constantly freezing. So what I've been doing is cooking a big batch of stuff on Sundays and just divvying it up into, I bought a bunch of bento containers. So I have a stack of bento containers in my refrigerator, and that's what I eat each day after daily space because I don't want to bother with cooking. PB&J is totally legit. I, however, want warm food. Yeah. I can't wait for it to be warm outside. These are the things I am eager for. And we are back to staring at the top of the heads from Spaceballs. Oh, yeah, you know, peanut butter is really something that you have to grow up with. Although Nutella, I mean, it's the same concept, just a whole lot more tasty. Whole lot more tasty. That's awesome, Chandra Loon. I did not know that about the slow cooker streams. Nutella and jelly. I do not like chocolate and fruit mixed. I had a bad experience in first grade with chocolate covered strawberries, and since then, just no. But that's a personal problem. Oh, as we wait. I can see that, Michael.
This is LD on channel 1.
Go LD.
Yes, sir. Please perform the contingency adjust load for stopper 60, step 17.
Roger.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The issue seems to have been caused by a bad amplifier card on a ground system hydraulic pump controller. The team is working on a solution to this issue, and again, we still have until 4:57 p.m. in this launch window, so we're working to find a solution to the issue, and we'll generate a new T0 when available.
So, our instro, can you translate what we just heard? I really feel like I need to have you hosting these. I do really like warm peanut butter cookies. I like oatmeal cookies more. I really like oatmeal cookies. Trucker Kev is just like, broken, need fixing. Nutella is excellent on banana bread. I had a fabulous moment in Rome a number of years ago. I was there for a conference that was held at an old monastery in downtown Rome, the old downtown. So it was like 3 blocks from the Colosseum. Really old monastery. And so we're there. It's the European Planetary Sciences Conference. I have no idea why it was held at an old monastery, but it was a fabulous facility. And I was at one point waiting for a friend to get out of a meeting, and I was just trying to kill time. So I walked out of the monastery and down a small alley following half-melted broken building ruins to see what I could see. And while I'm going down this alleyway, I came across this little tiny Nutella restaurant stand. I don't know. It was like, you go in, it's as wide as my desk, and there's this little tiny area you can stand in that's like a meter deep by the width of the counter, and there's this woman behind it with all the Nutella in front of her. Not Nutella, all the gelato in front of her. It was a gelato stand. I don't know why. Nutella stands are not a thing. And they had Nutella gelato. And that sounded amazing. And so I ordered, and she could clearly tell I was not Italian. And she went, no, too rich. Nutella banana. And you don't argue. You don't argue sometimes. It was like I was dealing with the soup Nazi, but it was the gelato lady. And that was the most amazing gelato. It was this perfect mixture of the sweetness of the banana and the lightness of the banana with the richness of the Nutella. And it was just one of those experiences you sometimes get while traveling that you would never have at home. And I'll never forget that particular moment. I ended up taking it, walking to the end of the alley, and sitting and eating it in the ruins of the first ever marketplace of Rome. It was just the weirdest conference I have ever gone to in the most excellent of ways. I really want to go back to Rome at some point. I would also really like for this rocket to please take off at some point, or at least put us out of our misery and tell us that it is not going to take off today. I'm going to at least make dogs happy. All right, let's see what I can do to make dogs happy. I'm going to stand up right off camera. I'm going to mute my camera and make the dogs behave. Let's see what I can do. I want that window. All right. Come here. Over here. Malachi. Malachi. Sit. It's on your butt. Malachi, sit. Go bed. Sit.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The team is working to reset the system that was anomalous. If it does return to stable, then that should resolve the issue and we should be able to generate a new T0. So while the team works that, we will just wait for them to resolve the issue. As I mentioned earlier in the show, today's AEHF-6 satellite, along with the first 5 AEHF satellites, have all been built by Lockheed Martin. Let's take a look at a video from our satellite provider to see more about the AEHF constellation.
Malachi, go back. So here you can see the building they build the rocket in the foreground, and the rocket that they're hoping to launch today in the background. And this is the camera angle I hate. The white, snowy looking stuff that periodically gets caught on the wind is actually frost that is built up on the outside of the rocket on this humid day. That area of the rocket is filled with cooled liquid gases that, well, freeze frost to the outside of the rocket. This causes no harm. As was pointed out earlier in this particular broadcast, this particular rocket in this particular configuration looks rather like a giant, well, octopus waiting to get launched. You can even see where the symbol is on the getting narrower bit under the really big holds the spacecraft bit. It kind of looks like an eye. This is not actually a giant flying octopus. That would be far more interesting. This is a satellite being launched. It's the last of the series for the Air Force. This is also called the very first launch of the Space Force. The Space Force is a division of the Department of
Flight
the Air
control,
Force.
LC, that one.
Go ahead, this flight control.
Flight control, we've been directed to load a new address file. Do you have that file ready for load?
Yes, I do.
Okay, for Operation 60, Step 170, you can give me the file name and you can proceed with it.
I'm sorry, can you say again, Launch Connect?
Yeah, I just need the address file name and then you can proceed with it.
Yeah, it's adjust _ AV086 _ 06.
Roger 06, proceed.
They function the same way the rest of us do. So the so close to the lightning rods is just the perspective. It's actually quite a large area. People who launch rockets are human too. This rocket is too big to hug. This one is really too big to hug. The Astra rockets from Alaska, which failed, and the Electron rockets, which are launched from New Zealand, and I think Wallops, those are huggable. The Atlas, well, that one's holding, I want to say like a 1,300 pound? That's probably smaller. It's holding a giant-ass spacecraft in it. These are big spacecraft. I'm going to pull up the information on this. We now have 54 minutes of launch window remaining. So in other news I have found while looking this up is the military has committed to keeping Cape Canaveral open for launches during the COVID epidemic. I'm currently looking up just how big this really big rocket is because I don't remember. Not rocket, spacecraft.
LC, this flight control.
Go flight control.
Step 170, contingency file adjust _ AV086 _ 06 with SDLCRC Delta Foxtrot Charlie has been verified and loaded into NANCA.
Roger.
Translation, they have launched a new program for launch into the vehicle to account for any changes
LC, that one.
to vehicle configuration.
LD on one.
I'll make sure you heard we have the address loaded. SDL-CRC Delta Foxtrot Charlie.
And changes due to weather. This is a 12,000, not 1,200, a 12,000 pound, 6,168 kilogram spacecraft they're launching. The Atlas V's are big.
This is Atlas Mission Control. After the hold, the launch team completed procedures to back out of the partially completed terminal count. We're waiting on resolution of the issue that caused the hold before a new launch time can be determined. After that point, we will reconduct the launch readiness poll at L-7 minutes and continue through the launch count as normal. So we'll just wait for the team to finish up resolving that issue, and we'll have a new T0 shortly.
So Herculaneum and Pompeii look pretty identical, Michael. Herculaneum is considered the better facility to go to because it hasn't been used as a touristic site. Pompeii is more famous because it was found first, I believe, and has been used for so much tourism. I know that when I was in Rome, all of the planetary scientists were like, I'm going to Herculaneum. Depending on when you went, 2002 is consistent with when Italy wasn't at its most economically sound. The nation has...
LD1 is AC.
Go AC.
Ready to outbrief the booster hydraulic issue.
Roger. LD Net 1.
LD.
MD Net 1. MD. Proceed AC.
Okay, the team did a couple of troubleshooting activities to hopefully get us in position. The second one was based on some experience during the checkout of this vehicle earlier. We turned off the hydraulics and brought it back up. The parameter in question was stable, and we have positioned the engine and TRMR valves properly. Our recommendation is to try it again.
LC concurs. LD.
LD concurs.
MD. MD concurs.
They turned it off and turned it back on again. This is what you have to do sometimes. You kick it, you wiggle the wires, you turn it off and you turn it back on, and somehow that takes the ghosts.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The engineering team developed a troubleshooting test that proved successful in resolving the ground hydraulics issue. So we are standing by to establish a new launch time today.
The sky has gotten significantly clearer while they prepare. It is turning into a gorgeously sunny day in Florida. It is not a gorgeously sunny day here in Illinois. It is a periodically sunny day.
For the team on Net 1, we'll pick up Operation 80, Step 330 when we get new T0 direction.
Michael, I agree. Marketing speak is indeed the language which she is talking, which is in many ways...
LC, this is LD.
Go LD.
Yes, sir. Please coordinate a new T0 of 2018.
Roger, 2018.
Good.
ALC, set countdown clock for new T0 of 2018. RC, please coordinate with range new T0 2018. Roger. OSM. OSM, LC, Net 1.
OSM, go ahead.
Place the SRB ignition SNA switch in the enable position.
SRB switch in the enable position.
Locks 2, verify CISC purge flowing GN2 to the CISA.
Verified.
OSM, verify the FCO, RCO, and OSM home fire switches are in the proceed position.
Verified.
RLM, verify red line monitor event table in the correct configuration for terminal count.
Verified.
Flight control, perform launch on time verification.
Roger.
LC, ALC.
Go ALC.
Countdown clock has been set for new T0 of 20:18 Zulu.
Roger.
This is Atlas Mission Control. The launch team has coordinated a new T0 of 4:18 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right, we are good to go, people. We are good to go in 8 minutes. Yeah, Michael, it is amazing how much human intervention.
RC.
New T0 has been approved by the range.
Roger. All right, for the team, we're approaching L-8 on the L clock. T0 has been coordinated.
L-8 minutes.
Launch on time verified.
Roger. LC switch to the ready position. All personnel return to the L-7 status check, Op 60, step 210, page 129.
They all literally have binders of paper instructions they go through. And if any of you are...
In a few moments, launch conductor Scott Barney will poll the launch team for the final go to pick up the countdown. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Scott Barney performs the final polling of the launch team.
So the reason they do all of this by humans is if any of you have ever written software, you don't want to trust the software. The more software...
L-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion. Go. Hydraulics. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
ASGAS.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Operations support.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
ALC. Verified T0 is set for 2018 Zulu.
Verified.
Proceeding with the count.
I would like to say you guys are the best chat ever. It's always very pleasing.
Polling is complete, and the launch team has given the go for launch. So again, we'll talk about what you'll hear from T-minus 4 minutes until launch. You'll be listening to Scott Barney and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. You will hear the team call out that Atlas LO2 topping has been secured, followed about a minute later by the call out for transferring Atlas and Centaur stages from ground facility power to internal battery power. At T-minus 1 minute 55 seconds, the team will command the launch sequencer to start, followed shortly by securing the Centaur LH2 and LO2 topping activity. At T-minus 1 minute 40 seconds, the team will command the flight control system to launch enable and arm the flight termination system. In the final minute, the Atlas tanks will be verified at flight pressures, followed by verification of Centaur tank pressures. A final status check of Atlas, Centaur, and AEHF-6 readiness is conducted at T-minus 25 seconds. At T-minus 3 seconds, the RD-180 engine will roar to life. After liftoff, you'll hear the voice of Jesse Gonzalez providing launch vehicle ascent data.
She has a script. This is the exact script we heard earlier. This is also very human and delightful.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1, marked.
Yay!
355.
Ground pyros enabled.
Okay, and now we wait. I don't expect
The
much.
countdown clock has resumed, and we are go for launch at 4:18 p.m. Eastern.
I don't expect there to be much after launch, as this is a military vessel, although it's sufficiently large that there is no way they can hide where it is in orbit. So we may get lucky and get a fair amount of coverage to high altitude, but it is unclear. We'll stick with it as long as it remains interesting.
T-minus 3 minutes.
Securing LO2 topping.
Atlas tanks flight pressure.
2 minutes, 50 seconds.
FTS internal.
The lighting's getting prettier. That's one good thing for the delay. Pretty golden sunlight. It is nearing the pretty shadows time of day.
T-minus 1 minute, 59 seconds.
Vehicle internal.
155.
Launch sequencer start.
150.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
140.
Launch enabled.
137.
FTS armed.
T-minus 90 seconds. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch.
T-minus 1 minute, 20 seconds.
OCU's armed.
SCS count start.
115.
Reduce ECS for launch.
Roger.
110.
Vent valves locked.
T-minus 1 minute.
T-minus
Rock,
1 minute.
report range status.
Range green.
T-minus 40 seconds.
Stable at step 3.
T-minus 28 seconds.
ECS reduce for launch.
Roger.
25 seconds.
Status check.
Go Atlas. Go Centaur.
Go AEHF 6.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have ignition and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket with AEHF-6 on the first mission for the United States Space Force.
Beginning the pitch over program. Passing 15 seconds into flight. PU has gone to closed loop control. ERD 180 is throttling down to 67% thrust as expected. Engine response looks good. Passing 30 seconds into flight. 35 seconds into flight, Mach 1. Atlas V is now supersonic. Engine operating parameters look nominal. Passing 45 seconds into flight. Passing through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. ERD 180 is throttling back up to 94% as expected. Engine response looks good.
Coming up on 1 minute into flight, SRB chamber pressures remain nominal at this time. The vehicle is 10 miles in altitude, 6 miles downrange, traveling at 2,300 miles per hour. "75 seconds into flight, the RD-180 is throttling to 75% thrust as expected, standing by for SRB burnout shortly." And we have burnout on all 5 SRBs. The RD-180 is being throttled back up to full thrust following SRB burnout. Standing by for SRB jettison shortly. And we have jettison of all 5 SRBs. The vehicle has gone to closed loop guidance. Passing 2 minutes into flight, the RD-180 pump speed and fuel injector pressures remain nominal. PU continues to drive mass errors towards 0. The vehicle is now 40 miles in altitude, 56 miles downrange, traveling at 5,000 miles per hour. Coming up on 2.5 minutes into flight, approximately 2 minutes left until BECO. And the RD-180 is now throttling to maintain a constant 2.5 G acceleration, and the Centaur reaction control system is now pressurizing to flight levels. Vehicle body rates remain nominal at this point in flight, and PU continues to operate nominally as well. And the vehicle is now 65 miles in altitude, 140 miles downrange, traveling at 7,500 miles per hour. Standing by for payload fairing jettison shortly. And we have good indication of payload fairing jettison. And we have Centaur forward load reactor deck jettison. BECO is in approximately 1 minute. The RD-180 is throttling back up to 95% thrust as expected. Engine response continues to look good. And the RD-180 is now throttling to maintain a constant 4.6 G acceleration limit. And we have the beginning of the boost phase chill down on the RL-10 to thermally condition the second stage engine for operation. Standing by for BECO shortly. We have the end of boost phase chill down. And we have BECO, booster engine cutoff. And we have good Atlas Centaur separation. We have indication of pre-start on the RL-10. Standing by for MES-1. And we have ignition on the RL-10. Seeing good response from RL-10 operating parameters and Centaur body rates at the beginning of the burn. Congratulations to the Aerojet Rocketdyne team, RL-10 team, as today's mission marks the flight of the 500th production RL-10 engine.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T plus 5 minutes 9 seconds. Jesse Gonzalez just confirmed the successful completion of the early phase of today's flight, and all systems continue to operate nominally. The mission is currently in the first of 3 Centaur engine burns. Our next event, Centaur main engine cutoff, will occur in approximately 6 minutes. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to hear from General J.T. Thompson regarding the tireless work his team puts into getting national security missions in space. Let's take a look at what he had to say. General Thompson, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us about the launch?
Hi, Amanda. It's a really important launch today. Not only is it the final launch of an advanced extremely high-frequency satellite, AEHF-6. It is also the very first launch for the United States Space Force. As you know, national security space launch is a team sport. And so the professionals here at the Space and Missile Systems Center who have accumulated a successful launch record of 78 for 78 over the last several years have been able to work the requirements very hard, but we do this in strong partnership with our operational launch squadrons, in this case today the 45th Space Wing and their team at Patrick Air Force Base and Cape Canaveral, but also on West Coast launches with the 30th Space Wing up at Vandenberg Air Force Base.
We're always really excited about launch, but given the current COVID-19 situation, why is it important that we launch right now?
Thanks, Amanda. That's a great question given the current world situation. There are critical things or mission essential things that the U.S. Department of Defense does every day, regardless of what the current global situation is. So even in the face of a global pandemic like the current COVID-19 crisis, we must continue to perform mission essential tasks. One of those mission essential tasks, one of those things that we have to do for the warfighter and for the United States of America is launch AEHF-6. It is designated mission essential, and it's because the AEHF constellation supports the President of the United States, other national leaders, and the joint forces with critical strategic communications around the planet. And this particular launch extends that capability out into the time frame beyond 2030. Obviously, the health and safety of our workforce is really critical part of that. And so while we were conducting this mission essential or critical task of this AEHF-6 launch, we've taken every precaution to ensure our workforce is safe.
What are some of the partners that utilize and help to operate this constellation?
Just like I said earlier with regard to launch being a team sport, partnerships are really effective in this endeavor. In fact, one of the tenets that we prioritize under our recent re-architecture called Space and Missile Systems Center 2.0 is partnership, and the AEHF-6 launch really exemplifies that concept. Obviously, the completed constellation possesses the capacity to serve all of our joint partners with the strategic terminals that they possess to be able to do protected SATCOM. So the Army, the Navy, our brothers and sisters in the Air Force, as well as a number of our international partners and allies around the planet, certainly Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and the Netherlands are all part of the program and very critical to the success of the program. Obviously, our industrial base has huge partnerships associated with this effort. United Launch Alliance from the rocket standpoint, and from the satellite standpoint, Lockheed Martin is the prime, although Northrop Grumman provides the payload to Lockheed Martin for this important satellite that is AEHF-6.
Well, thank you for answering our questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Amanda, only that I offer my hearty congratulations to this entire team that made this particular launch happen. We've talked about a lot of them through some of your previous questions, but between our industrial base, United Launch Alliance, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and many other suppliers, the partnerships that exist across the Space and Missile Systems Center between the Satellite Vehicle Program Office and the Launch Vehicle Program Office, and then across the partnerships at the 45th Space Wing and the United States Space Force. We just couldn't do it alone, and the teamwork that these folks have exemplified throughout this launch campaign has truly been remarkable. Frankly, it would be remarkable in a normal world, in a normal set of launch challenges. The fact that they have accomplished this launch and all of the work associated with it during a global pandemic that has shut down huge portions of the United States economy and many, many cities and states across the nation, I think really demonstrates that when things are at their worst, your Department of Defense and your United States Space Force are at their best.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
And
we are now approaching main engine cutoff 1. Let's listen in to Jesse Gonzalez once again.
And coming up on MECO, we have had PU go to closed loop control, and we've had main engine cutoff. Engine cutoff pressure signatures look good. Centaur will coast for approximately 11 minutes prior to the next burn. Near the end of the first burn, we did have IIP vanish, and Centaur is now orbital. The RCS system is now commanding 100% settling and turning to the MES-2 attitude. Body rates and RCS performance looks good.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T plus 12 minutes, 28 seconds. Jesse Gonzalez just confirmed the first Centaur main engine cutoff. Our next event, main engine burn 2, will occur in approximately 10 minutes. Recently, I sat down with ULA's Julie Chittenden to discuss how thermal aspects play a role in a rocket launch and in AEHF-6 in particular. Let's take a look at our conversation. So I'm here with Julie Chittenden, and she is a thermal engineer. So Julie, can you talk a little bit about what that means and what you do?
Well, in space, it's really hostile. So as a thermal engineer, what I do is I look at all the components of the rocket and make sure they don't get too hot or too cold to function. And what's really cool is that as a thermal analyst, I get to look at the entire rocket, not just one component.
So what are some of the things we do with every rocket to mitigate the thermal impacts?
Yeah, so there are several things that we do with every rocket. One is surface coatings. It's kind of like when you have a white car and a black car outside, you can walk up to them and tell that the black car is hotter than the white car. So if there are things that are going to get too hot, we may paint them white or use some other kind of surface coating that will keep it in a certain temperature range. Other things that we can do, add insulation. We've all seen the lunar lander, and it has that gold foil part to it. That's actually insulation, and it's a really lightweight. So we use something similar to that we can cover components with or other items just to make sure that they stay within a temperature balance.
A lot of our missions have a relatively short time frame between liftoff and spacecraft separation, but for this launch, the Atlas V rocket is taking the AEHF-6 satellite to a geosynchronous transfer orbit, and that's almost 6 hours from liftoff till separation. So what are some of the thermal considerations for these particularly long duration missions?
When you're in space longer, you have a much higher chance of getting too hot or too cold. So there are certain things that we can do to help mitigate that. One is if a component's getting too cold, we might put a heater on it to keep it warm during the mission. The other thing that we can do is do more passive thermal mitigations. So one thing that we do is we use what we call a barbecue roll. It's kind of like rotisserie chicken. So that's what we're doing with our stage or our vehicle, is that we'll start a roll so that one side doesn't get really, really hot because the other side will get really, really cold, and everything will be kind of out of bounds. So this way we get a nice even heating and nothing gets super hot or super cold.
So do any of those launch considerations go into the actual time that we're able to launch at?
There are times where when we're looking at thermal considerations, we may say, you know, hang on, we're in shadow like a really long time and we're getting really cold, so we might not want to launch at this day or time.
What happens when we have a decal or we paint a different color somewhere on the vehicle?
Yeah, when you see the rocket on the launch pad, you see those really nice decals on our fairing. We do account for that. We do have a white fairing for a reason, because, you know, in Florida it's a little hot. So we like to keep things a little bit cool. But yes, we do account for those dark decals as part of our analysis. And if there were any significant changes, we'd have to go back and double check and make sure that we're okay.
So you mentioned that you look at the different amounts of time that you're going to spend in the sun versus the shadow on orbit. How does that go into affecting the actual performance of the vehicle?
Yeah, if you are in the sun for a really long time, you're pumping heat into our tanks. So we use cryogenics, which boil off at a very low temperature. So if you're pumping heat into the tank, you're boiling off your fuel. And the less fuel you have, the less time you can burn, which basically decreases the performance of the rocket. So what we do is we see how much heat goes into our tanks. We hand that off to our propulsion analysis, and they determine what that does to our performance of our vehicle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It was great having you.
Well, thanks.
It looks so sad in that particular animation. It's like, hi, I'm lost up here. I'm on the dark side of the planet now. Just hanging out, wobbling a little, kind of twitching. Poor rocket.
If you follow ULA on Twitter, you may have seen recently we reached out to ask, what questions do you have for rocket scientists? You asked and we answered. Here are some of the best submissions that we received. So our first Twitter question is, what makes the AEHF-6 launch special? Every launch is special, but this launch has 3 specific historical aspects to it. So first, this is our first national security launch for the U.S. Space Force. Second, this is the 6th and the final satellite in the AEHF-6 constellation, the secure military communications constellation that'll now be complete. And last, this is the 500th launch of the RL-10 that is on the Centaur upper stage. So we're really excited to launch this critical national asset for the U.S. Space Force. The next question is, how will the 411 rocket SRB configuration be different than the 551 configurations? Will a power slide be involved? You may recall for the Solar Orbiter launch last month that the Atlas V rocket used a 411 configuration with 1 SRB. So that configuration has the appearance of a power slide off of the launch pad as it clears the tower. So for today's launch, the Atlas V will be in a 551 configuration with 3 SRBs on one side and 2 on the other. So you still will have that asymmetric thrust. However, because this has much higher thrust and will come off the launch pad quicker, you probably won't notice the same amount of slide as you would for the 411 configuration. The next question is, what is the type of orbit AEHF-6 will be put into? The Atlas V rocket will deliver AEHF-6 into a high-energy geosynchronous transfer orbit. So this orbit has a higher perigee and a lower inclination than a typical GTO orbit, which is why it takes about 6 hours to complete this mission. This specific customized orbit allows the satellite to get into its geosynchronous orbit that's operational at about 22,000 miles above the Earth. We can do that in less time and with less fuel, which adds critical flexibility to this mission. The next question is, how does the second stage Centaur RCS system work? So the reaction control system on the second stage uses tiny thrusters positioned on Centaur to orient and guide the stage through space. Today's mission is the 254th launch of Centaur. Centaur uses stainless steel walls that are thinner than a dime, which was one of the key features that makes it the highest performing upper stage in the world. What are the general steps in assembling the vehicle and moving it to the launch pad? So the Atlas V rocket today and the Vulcan Centaur rocket of the future uses a clean pad concept of operations here at Cape Canaveral Space Launch Complex 41. So the different elements of the rocket, the stages, the payload, SRBs, are all assembled atop the mobile launch platform inside of the vertical integration facility, which you can see behind me. It's about 1/3 of a mile away from the center of the pad. After all of the systems have been tested, the 200-foot stack makes the journey to the center of the pad.
And we are back to the sad animation. It now looks like it's going over the most desolate planet ever. I wonder what part of our Earth that is supposed to be. Other than the part I do not wish to visit. Which probably means it's like the Midwest, but...
Established on December 20th, 2019, the U.S. Space Force is a new military service that organizes, trains, and equips space forces in order to protect U.S. and allied interests in space and to provide space capabilities to the Joint Force. ULA's launch today of the AEHF-6 satellite is the first mission under Space Force Command. Here's a message from Tori Bruno, ULA's president and CEO, on this historic event.
I wanted to say congratulations to the newly formed United States Space Force and to say how excited we are to fly the very first mission for the Space Force. And I think it's just so apropos that it is the advanced EHF-6 spacecraft, the sixth generation of this constellation, or the sixth satellite of this constellation, that provides secure military communications around the globe, helping to keep our troops safe, being a part of our allied presence with other countries, and being a backbone of keeping the peace here on Earth and now also keeping the peace out in space. We are pretty excited to fly this at ULA. We care a lot about these missions. We understand them. We know how important they are, and we are all about their mission success. So now I have really just three things to say. Go Atlas, go Centaur, and go Space Force.
And we have LH2 pre-start on the RL-10.
We are now approaching main engine start 2. Let's listen in.
And we have LOX pre-start on the RL-10. We have ignition for the second burn. This burn will be approximately 6 minutes in duration, and the TDO-2 payload will be deployed shortly after MECO-2. Engine parameters look good at the beginning of the burn.
So we're going to stay with the ULA broadcast.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T+ 23 minutes 7 seconds. We just heard confirmation of the second main engine start. Main engine cutoff 2 is planned to occur in approximately 6 minutes. While we wait, I wanted to give our audience an update today on the progress of ULA's new rocket, the Vulcan Centaur. Over the last year, we've made steady progress towards a first flight in 2021. Last spring, we completed the System Critical Design Review and transitioned into building hardware in our factory in Decatur, Alabama. The structural test booster was completed last summer and moved to our partners at Dynetics for testing. In parallel, modifications were made to Space Launch Complex 41 here at Cape Canaveral to accommodate the larger Vulcan Centaur rocket. Those modifications included larger fuel storage tanks and increasing the capacity of the acoustic water suppression system. In the vertical integration facility, platforms were extended, and in the Spaceflight Processing and Operations Center, a second mobile launch platform was constructed to enable both Atlas V and Vulcan Centaur launches from Slick 41, an industry first. Finally, production continues in Decatur for the first 2 Vulcan Centaur flights, launching Astrobotic's Peregrine Lunar Lander and Sierra Nevada's Dream Chaser to the International Space Station. Today's mission marks the 500th flight of the Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10 engine. Let's take a look at the history and accomplishments of this time-proven capability.
The RL-10 has been the upper stage workhorse for the United States for over 50 years because of its incredible reliability and high performance.
The launch of the Air Force's Advanced Extremely High Frequency AEHF military communication satellite aboard a United Launch Alliance Atlas V will mark a major milestone for Aerojet Rocketdyne's RL-10 upper stage engine. The RL-10 engine will be making its 500th flight, spanning over 50 years of space history.
There's not a lot of rocket engines that have 500 flights, and the RL-10 has been around for over 50 years, and it's gone through 9 major upgrades over those 50 years. It's flown on the Saturn as an upper stage, it's flown on Atlas as an upper stage, Delta as an upper stage, and it even flew on a vehicle called Delta Clipper Experimental, DCX, that was a vertical takeoff, vertical landing experimental vehicle, and one of the first engines to ever fly in a vertical takeoff, vertical landing vehicle.
The RL-10 engine began its illustrious career at the dawn of space exploration in 1963, supporting the Saturn rocket program. And from there, it was used to launch countless commercial and military satellites into orbit, sent spacecraft to every planet in our solar system, and even sent Voyager 1 and 2 on their way into interstellar space. The RL-10 engine has been the nation's premier high-performance upper-stage rocket engine for more than 55 years and has achieved an unmatched record of reliability and performance. RL-10 was the first high-performance liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen engine ever developed.
Liquid hydrogen has a lot more energy than carbon-based fuels like kerosene, and that energy translates into the equivalent of fuel economy, which makes for a very efficient engine.
Recent advances in technology and additive manufacturing processes continue to increase the performance and quality of the RL-10, making it the perfect solution for future rocket programs like ULA's Vulcan rocket and NASA's Space Launch System that will take us back to the moon and eventually onto Mars. The Aerojet Rocketdyne team is also working on a new version of the RL-10, known as the RL-10CX, which will leverage additive manufacturing to build major components of the engine in order to make the engine much more affordable, while maintaining the outstanding performance and reliability that has made the RL-10 the upper stage engine of choice for decades.
Thanks to the RL-10 team for continuing to provide an exceptional engine that serves the needs of our nation.
We are going to stay with this launch coverage through TDO2 separation of the spacecraft, and we will be back tomorrow with morning coffee.
1 minute remaining in the burn, continuing to see very good performance of the PU system, very low mass errors.
We're now approaching main engine cutoff 2, which will be followed by separation of today's aft bulkhead payload, TDO2. Let's return to the flight.
Standing by for MECO 2 shortly. And we've had MECO, main engine cutoff. We're standing by for TDO2 payload release in about 30 seconds. Following TDO2 release, Centaur will coast for approximately 5 hours prior to the third and final burn.
We're not staying for 5 hours. I love you, but I'm just going to point out it kind of looks like a taser with those two things sticking out the front, which is somehow fitting.
And we have good indication of successful deployment of the TDO2 spacecraft from the Centaur F bulkhead carrier.
I want to know what just launched in the background of that animation. Something just took off the other side.
We're now seeing Centaur turn to its PTC roll attitude and beginning its PTC roll, and body rate responses look good.
With TDO2 separation, I'd like to thank Jesse Gonzalez for his support of today's show. For continuing updates on today's mission during this 5.5-hour coast, the final Centaur burn, and spacecraft separation, please visit ULA's live launch updates blog at ulalaunch.com or join the conversation on Twitter and Facebook. We'll now complete today's coverage with another look at today's liftoff, which occurred at 4:18 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Amanda Sterling, and on behalf of the entire launch team, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of the day. 5, 4, 3, 2, we have ignition and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket with AEHF-6 on the first mission for the United States Space Force.
And I'm going to go ahead and freeze it there while everything is glorious. I thank all of you for joining us here at CosmoQuest X with us as we provided you live coverage of the launch of a new, less jammable, high-frequency communication satellite for the military. This launch was performed by the Space Force using a United Launch Alliance Atlas rocket. The Space Force is a division of the Department of the Air Force. Thus, we saw a 3-star general in Air Force uniform earlier. We here at CosmoQuest do everything we can to bring you all that is new in space and astronomy, and this includes bringing you reasonably houred launches as they happen. We will be back tomorrow for morning coffee, sometime vaguely around 9 a.m. Central, which is 10 a.m. Eastern. Hold on. Getting a message. All right. We will be back for morning coffee, during which we go over what we see as new and plan for our day, which will include tomorrow the Daily Space at 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. London. That is 10 a.m. Los Angeles, followed shortly thereafter by Astronomy Cast, which I promise will actually stream about about white dwarf mergers at 3 p.m. Eastern. That is 7 p.m. London, noon Los Angeles tomorrow. Until then, my name is Dr. Pamela Gay, and this has been a production of the Planetary Science Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to exploring our solar system and beyond. We are brought to you by you. We're here thanks to the generous donations of people like you. Your bits, your subs, and your patronage at patreon.com helps to keep the science flowing. So until tomorrow, I am going to go ahead and figure out who there is to raid. Do we have any particular preferences? I am seeing EJ is still up. Anyone have any other suggestions before I go to credits? That is awesome. So feel free to join Amy over on YouTube. I can't raid YouTube, so I'm going to raid EJ. But I also encourage you to jump on over to YouTube. So until tomorrow. Sorry, I really have got to get my Stream Deck working. Until then, I'm going to awkwardly look around, trying to find all the buttons I need to click. All right, until tomorrow, wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous morning, evening, or afternoon, and wash your hands. Bye-bye, everyone.